So, we are live. Hello, Nadia.
Hi, Sonsoles. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, it's so good to see you. And I'm so glad that Sean put us in contact with each other. Yeah. I was just wondering, I'm going to go, because I'm using StreamYard, I am going to go to Facebook and see if I can see what is happening there. I just want to make sure that everything is working.
There's a lot of light in my face, at least. So.
That is always good. You can be seen. So let me check. Yes, it's working. And we are already in the company of one viewer. Perhaps you can introduce yourself. I don't know who you are, but don't forget to give StreamYard permission, by the way, to use your name so that we can see your comments on the platform. So we have more viewers. The number is going up. We are 3 right now. We would love it for you to introduce yourself. To let us know who you are and what you do. Do you have a team? Do you have? Are you a team member? And do you have questions about perhaps the person who is leading you? Okay, so I see here Mark. Hi, it's Mark. Hello, Mark. It's good to see you. You are one of my loyal viewers. Okay, so tell us, Mark, where are you listening in from, and why are you here? Are you leading a team? Are you part of a team? Might take a little while because there is a little bit of delay between StreamYard and Facebook. So, Mark, whenever you're ready, we would love to know who you are and what you do and what brought you here. All right. So, Nadia, it's very exciting to have you here because we have so much in common, and we are about to discover even, more about that. But you are also such an example of female empowerment. You started as a secretary at the NATO, and you, became a senior executive. And I think that's a story that could inspire a lot of women today. And I would love for you to tell us something about that.
Yes, there's a book in there. So my name is Nadia, and I used to work at NATO for almost 2 decades. And I started out as a secretary, indeed, actually at the Dutch Ministry of Defense, like a long time ago. And I worked my way up till senior executive. So it was a lot of hard work and challenges, opportunities, struggles, certificates, education, etc. But it was an amazing time. And I truly believe that everything happens for a reason, because all the experiences that I've gained in NATO, I left last year to found my own company, Thrive with EQ, Emotional Intelligence. And I really use cyber preparedness, cyber crime simulations to exercise collaboration between multidisciplinary teams. So I really focus on how do we prepare in terms of cybersecurity, cyber resilience, especially in this global remote workforce in the age of pandemic. So that's my main focus. I also do a lot on personal leadership. I truly believe that, especially now in these times, having personal empowerment and taking control over your life and the way you think is so important. So I coach and I do several writings, blogs, seminars, training, emotional intelligence, and helping really people leverage their personal leadership. So it's all combined, right? You cannot collaborate together unless you first take ownership of yourself. So you are an individual as part of a team.
Yes.
And I think one big lessons we have seen now in the time of Corona, or when COVID hit, is that when you look at the Maslow hierarchy of needs, right? The basic human needs. And the second layer is feeling safe and secure. And a lot of people, they don't have the psychological safety anymore because we don't know what's going to happen next. Right now, already with the second wave, and for me, it's, you know, it seems like what's happened in the first wave is the same behaviors, the same reaction, the same fear popping up, etc. So it's how do people feel safe and secure when there's so much uncertainty still looming large? So this is why I think it's so important that people start reframing the way they see their life, right?
Yeah.
The nations, they reported almost 1 billion people across the globe that are suffering from some kind of mental health or depression, and that was not existent before COVID. So it's a real issue, and it requires a high priority.
Okay. So you have 20 years of experience at the NATO. I want to know more about that, but give me a second, because Mark has answered the question that we asked him. So he says, I am from the Netherlands. I used to have a startup and led a team of 10 employees. I am very interested in learning new ways to collaborate in high-stress environments. So, okay, so this is actually perfect in order to go back to your experience with the military. I happen to know that, as strange as it may sound, there are actually overlaps in between the military and contemporary music. I know that the military use something called mission command, and in the contemporary music, we use what we call graphic scores. And basically, what you have is a few rules that you need to follow, but they are very easy to memorize. And then, aside from that, you are free to do the work as you see fit. Yeah. So, in the military, people get to do the fighting as they see fit, and in the music, you get to do the performance as you see fit. The military happened to be one of the most innovative industries, as far as I know, when it comes to collaboration, to system thinking, to different ways of working together. So, how much of your experience with the NATO have you put into Thrive with IQ? Sorry, that's the official name.
Actually, a lot, in the sense that, so working at NATO for so long, and I worked in different areas. I was also deployed in the field. So you have two state of beings, basically, right? You have state when you are at war, when soldiers and civilians are actually in conflict, they are working together and they are in deployment mode, or peacetime, right? So you are not at war, but you are preparing to be at war or to not be, attacked. So defense. And as the years evolved, because the challenges became very complex, and then, cyber and space, etc. But there were always two states: or you were in conflict, or you were always exercising to be prepared to go into conflict.
Exactly.
So I came up with, because I thought I wanted to start something where it's more than just dialogue, more than just, conferences and talking about how to solve, but how to exercise people skills, right? Because I think one big clue or one big lesson learned for me is that people are very complex human beings. We experience the world differently based on our mental models, based on our upbringing. And on top of that, right, our emotions influence the way we behave, we express ourselves, we perceive ourselves, the way we decide, the way we perform, etc. And I think that over the years, we've exercised agility in processes, in systems, in technology. And now, when, with the pandemic, how do you exercise human agility, right?
Mm-hmm.
You build resilience, but how do you help people understand how to function and how to collaborate together and reduce the friction, right? There's always going to be friction. There's always going to be constructive tension that is healthy, but there's so much that is non-healthy, and it can be, and it's different for different organizations, which is why I came up with the concept of crisis simulations, basically simulating real life workplace challenges. Now, my specifically is now cybercrime, but I also, design scenarios when it comes to climate change, or when it comes to, last week I did for a trainee program on how do they exercise personal leadership when you just come out of the workforce and you work with such a diverse, multidisciplinary organization. So it's very interesting because people start to, and I use role play, right? Because it needs to provide a safe environment so people don't feel like, oh no, then they're going to think a certain way of me, and because they will not show themselves, right? So I use role plays and I use creative writing to bring them alive, and I give them emotional intelligence characteristics. And then they always resonate with their role or with somebody else's role. And then the unconscious bias, because they are playing a role, so they don't see the situation through the emotional lens. We always perceive information through our limbic part of the brain, which is where all the emotions are processed. So it's very tainted, right? It's very, and this is how we judge, because we judge people based on how we see the world. So when they play a role, it's actually a disassociation technique. They are taking a step back from their own lens and seeing it through someone else's. And this is fostering empathy. And when you talk specifically about cybercrime, and someone mentioned it on LinkedIn the other day, it's so important to not only understand, develop empathy, how weird it may sound for the people attacked, or for the employees, but also for the hacker. Also, because there is a psychological behavior behind it, right? You need to foster empathy to come up with solutions that are people-centric and to reduce the human vulnerability.
Yeah, I would like to rewind a little bit, because you said something very important. You said it's not just talking, and that resonates very much with me as well, because even in organizations where teams are used to, talking about things, they always have the same kind of conversation, so they never get to solve the problems that they are facing. So you use your simulations, I use my systemic tools, and the purpose is indeed to sort of jar, the normal way of thinking, so that teams can have a different quality of talking to each other. That said, so we are here to learn how to stay cool, how to keep the cool when the shit hits the fan. And these days, it's quite evident that that is exactly what has happened. So just for our viewers, if you are a leader today, if you are a team member today, and you want to keep the cool, in the midst of all this stress and chaos and changes, and, not being able to trust anything anymore. So for someone who wants to learn how to keep the cool, what do you suggest? What is your medicine?
Well, I have several medicines, right? I do nice, but I think what I prepared for tonight is a technique that I also used, and it's from the Dr. Ellis, the late Dr. Ellis, who came up with the emotional rational behavior therapy, and it's called the ABCDE method. So I don't know if you can share the screen, so I can briefly demonstrate what the ABCD method is and how leaders themselves can use it, but can also educate or have their employees understand. So when you go to the first slide.
Yeah, just give me a second. Oh, this is interesting.
Because a lot of people, when and I think we've seen it, emotions. We as human beings, we do not control the triggering of our emotions, right? But we can manage the transition from the limbic part of the brain to the rational part of the brain, and different people have different levels of the transition, managing the transition process. And even if someone has a high level of emotional intelligence, when, as we call in the title, when shit hits the fan, that process can be compromised because the mood you're in influences the way you respond.
Yes.
This is the stress and the fight or fly mode, or freeze mode. Yeah.
So I put up your method, the ABCDE method. So I am a leader, and I am listening to you, and I want to keep the cool. So can you take me through some steps?
So the first thing is when you, for example, you're in the middle of a crisis, right? Well, let's say it's a cybersecurity crisis, and your email has been compromised, and data is now hacked, and you've been asked a huge ransomware sum, right? So the first thing you will happen is you will feel uncomfortable emotions, very uncomfortable emotions, and depending on your levels of emotional intelligence and experience and how you are able. Some people have low levels of awareness, so they don't really understand your label when they feel that, you know, those emotions, impulse surging, they react on it immediately, right? Because, and this is where emotional intelligence comes in. So it's first to understand that whatever you're feeling, the uncomfortable emotions, is normal. It's very normal. It's even when you feel anxiety, it's the same feeling as adrenaline. It's just what you tell yourself. So this is first. When shit hits the fan, there are breathing techniques, but you really need to allow those emotions to flow through you. Emotion, energy in motion. The second thing is understand what the activating event is. So what can happen in such a scenario? As a leader, you can call your IT team or you can call your CISO, right? And start yelling and start blaming. How did this happen, right? Do we have an internal loop, or, you know, I'm paying, whatever it is. So, and because you're reacting based on those emotions. So first, when you actually diffuse those emotions, you can call the CEOs, or you can call your leadership team, but speak related to the issue at hand, instead of understanding what the activating event is. Not someone else, but it's your fear that your trust, the shareholders, the customers, the trust that they have in you is now compromised. What will happen to the company, right? And how much data is stolen. So these are the activating event responsible for your emotion. It's not your CISO, it's not your IT professionals, because you don't have any facts yet in place.
Yeah. So I think in a nutshell, what you are saying is, don't make it personal. Just focus on the facts.
Exactly. And a lot of people say, but, you know, it is personal because it feels personal. This is what people need to understand. Of course it feels personal because your emotions are triggered. Your body thinks you are in a state of danger, right? This is because your mind is this is why you really need to engage the mind. So the third thing is to really understand what are your belief system, right? Are you someone who automatically jumps to the conclusion that this is a human error, or that someone, right, you're judging the IT team, or you are very much afraid of public trial, whatever it is. What is your unconscious bias? What is your belief, and how do you see yourself, right? Are you blaming yourself that you didn't invest enough in risk mitigation measures, whatever it is? So I'm giving a very general example, but obviously at an employee level, it's even, you know, it can be similar, but then in other context. So you have, when those emotions are triggered, there's a script going on in your mind, an autopilot, right? What you normally do. So before engaging with someone else, right, before engaging with your leaders or with your CISO, first you need to engage with yourself, right? This is called the debate, dispute, and discard, right? It's the other one. So number 5. I think.
Yes.
So how can you really say, okay, what am I making up in my mind? What are the facts that I have? And especially when you're in crisis, you need to do, you can, this is why exercising is so important, right? Because then you can do it much faster. But you really need to separate what's happening, what's important right now, to focus on the issue in hand, and to understand how you're thinking, so you don't engage in any discussion when emotions are heightened. Because when emotions are heightened, people, they they react based on fear, based, you know, their amygdala part of the brain, the control for fear, aggression, and sadness is activated. So they only access a very small portion of their brain capacity. So there's no point in even if it's a human error, there's no point in having any sensible discussions when emotions are high. So you really need to separate the facts with how you're feeling, right? And make about the issue at hand. And then the last one is the fact. So when the emotions are diffused, right, when you are controlling or containing the crisis, or when, you know, the height is again on the slope, then you speak, but you speak from a point of view that does not blame anyone, right? It does not feel responsible. After, when you communicate, for example, if I have an opinion about you, Sonsoles, or you have an opinion about me, and often if we have an argument, then our discussion is based on the assumptions we have about each other, not about the issue. Right? Yeah. And I say, you should have done this, Sonsoles, or why didn't you invest in this, or why didn't you secure the system, or why didn't you train your team? People become very defensive, right?
Yes, yes.
But if I say, okay, this happened, I am concerned, but I would like to find solutions. How can we, you know, how can we bounce back? So we need to find out what happened. Can you help me? What do you think? Right? You involve people. You don't make it about them necessarily, right? You don't your emotions to influence. And this is why the process of feeling the feelings and flipping the script is very important, so you can communicate, you can act from the rational part. Now, the final thing I will say about this seems like a very long process, right? And it is the first time, if you're not used to it, it takes up a lot of mental energy to do this, because it's not something that's familiar to you. This is why when you practice this, it will become a shortcut mental model in your brain, and then you will do it almost automatically.
Yeah, I am hearing here a link with what I like to call functional trust in teams. You know, I used to be a pianist, so I played a lot of concerts with ensembles, and the thing that we needed to trust during a concert is that the team members, regardless of the conflicts that we had with each other or the things that were happening in our life, the thing that we needed to trust was not that we liked each other's clothing style, or that we have the same hobbies or stuff like that. No, the thing that we needed to trust is that our colleagues would play the notes that they had to play, and that they give us the cues that they needed to give us when those cues need to happen. So when you are up there on stage, it's not personal. It's really about the task at hand. It's really the performance. So I see a link with what you are saying. Yeah.
Especially, can you imagine now in this time, right? If people feel very insecure and not safe within themselves, they're very prone to falling in this negative thinking or in this over exaggerating of the crisis. Yes, there is a crisis going on, right? But there's only so much you can control. And if you allow your insecurities or the way you see yourself, if you have some organizations or some cultures or some people, they attach a lot of importance on how they are perceived, right? Or if someone made an innocent error, you will be surprised the statistics of phishing trends and how many people are clicking innocently on the link, right?
Yeah.
Also, you can debate whether it's fair to request your people to be human firewalls. So, and then instead of coming forward or being part of the solution, they actually may hide the problem, or they may be paralyzed of action or make it worse because how they perceive themselves and how the feelings are making them feel on top of everything that they're going on. So the part of emotional intelligence is so important, and I love what you said, the functional trust. I didn't know this concept, but that you can exercise, and we are currently still in a kind of crisis when you look at the world. But the more you exercise, then you sustain this trust, right? Because the only thing we are certain of now is change and disruption.
Yeah, so this is great, because as someone who comes from the performing arts, if I had to give some tips to leaders, I would also say it all comes down to training and repetition, but not training and repetition of your skill, but training and repetition of the soft skills, these soft skills that are not soft at all, they are super hard, and that no one really wants to train because they are really sticky and you know, and messy. So yeah, it all comes down to training and repetition. And I'll give some examples of what it looks like in the performing arts. You know, I started training these soft skills, so to speak, when I was a kid. And I was told when giving concerts and tryouts, it doesn't matter if the roof comes crashing down, if the lights goes off for whichever reason, if someone coughs or sneezes or someone dies in the middle of a concert, you will play until the end. You will never stop in the middle. You will always finish the performance. So you do that, you know, from the time you're a kid, and that's what you are training, playing from beginning to end. So I look at my work with teams today, and I see that in the presence of paralysis, initiatives stop. So to make an analogy with performers is, no matter what happens, just continue to pursue your initiative until the end. Don't stop them in the middle.
Yes, I love this. You triggered a memory for me. Sometimes I see this orchestral shows, and I was going to ask you, do you have an example where actually shit did hit the fan, but you always see them continuing to play, like the whole building. Do you have a person? Do you have this happen to you as well? And
yeah, so it's all training and repetition. Also training of your EQ. Really being aware of what you said. Your emotions are yours, and you need to understand how they are impacting your performance and your relationship with your team members. And it comes down to training, you know, learning emotional management techniques, and just practice every single time something happens. I would say also training. Making a distinction between a bad performance and being a bad person. Often when we make a mistake, we tend to make it very personal, and, you know, we see ourselves without having worth, and, you know, it's so terrible. So you need to also train making a distinction. Okay, I didn't perform well, but I am still an okay person. I can learn. Also, I think training social intelligence, and now, you know, what are my team members' emotions and how are they impacting me, which you were talking about, and also using those management tools, emotional management tools, to deal with that. I think it's also about training and controlling your fear. You need to acknowledge it, as you said. You know, the fear is there, and you are going to do it anyway. Performers also have fear. You know, the stage fright is exactly that, fear. So you train yourself in feeling that fear and in pursuing your initiative, your concert in this case, until the end. You know, and if you are a leader or a team member, you do the same thing. You pursue the thing until the end.
If I can piggyback on the fear, what I tell people and teach people is the most important words you will ever speak are the ones that speak to yourself. And so when you are in a state of fear, right, your body wants to run away because your brain is sending signals that, you know, alarm, alarm, alarm. So what you tell yourself to tell the executive team in your brain, right, because everyone has a part to play, to calm them down, to tell the manager it's fine, you know, stop ringing the alarm bells, I'm safe, I'm secure, and that actually will diffuse the fear and dissuade the emotions. What happens often, and this is why repetition is so important, as you mentioned, we have two brains. We have one brain, but we have two minds, right? We have the creative mind, the conscious mind, which is responsible for 5% of the way you know, it's very active. So I'm using now my 5%. I'm paying attention that I don't say any words that don't make any sense. I'm not doing a good job in it or not.
You are, don't worry.
The other one, our 95%, is on autopilot. It's all the tapes and cassettes, your thinking patterns that you inherited from childhood, from the past. We have about average 70,000 thoughts a day, only 5% are new. So what happens if you have an experience, whether it's from childhood or from a past experience, where you experienced high levels of intense emotions, unpleasant emotions, including fear with a certain experience, whenever that experience is unconsciously triggered, that memory, the emotion is triggered. So then people go in the same behavior. And the only way to change that is to repetition the new behavior, right? The new mindset that disassociating the emotional charge that is related to that experience.
Yeah.
You can only do that on the subconscious level, and it requires repetition. So anything you learn requires repetition, right? We often think we can, read the book or listen to. This is why I think practicing, and I love what you do, really exercising it's in the research shows it's so much more important and beneficial in learning when you're doing it, because then everyone can benefit and understand what it means for them, right?
Exactly.
Different ways of perceiving the world and the way of behaving, and it's okay. I think it's the strength of diversity that we can use those and bring together, and especially if we come back to how does this look like, right? And especially now when people are working, I don't know, Asana is like this global project tool, but they have had a really cool publicity where they show people in their office clothes and in their pajamas, and it's now there's no blurred lines anymore, right? There's a lot of people now working from home. So how do you bring your authentic self? A lot of people are bringing their authentic self now, right? Because they cannot be bothered anymore after so long working or putting on a certain personality. So this is going to impact the way we work together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm still thinking about the fear and training that fear. You have to give a concert and you feel that fear and you give the concert anyway, and you let that fear travel through your body and you do it. And next time you do it again, and next time you do it again, and next time you do it again. And so gradually you build that muscle of, keeping the cool.
I think people they think it's ridiculous because we never learn to praise ourselves, right? Then we are seen as selfish or arrogant, but so important. Like your mind is very complex, but also very simple to use when you know how to use it.
Exactly.
It will react. So if you feel unworthy, or if you feel like, oh my God, I'm going to screw up, then you're going to screw up. If you really tell yourself that repetitively, then it's going to your cells, 50 trillion cells in our body, we're not just one being, is reacting to the information that it absorbs. And I think this is when people start understanding how powerful their mindset is and how they can change their mindset based on the present moment and not based on past conditioning, right?
Yes.
Both as human beings, but we also have to unlearn behaviors. We learn behaviors and unlearn. There's nothing wrong with us. I always cringe when people say, oh, we need to fix someone. No one is broken.
Exactly.
I know you don't need to fix people. You just need to teach people how to work together in a most efficient, effective way that contributes to the organizational objective, strategy, and goals. And that it has a nice team culture where people like working together, where people respect each other's individuality and combine their strengths. This is what you want to achieve.
Yes.
No.
Yeah. No, definitely. I am thinking of something else. I don't know how it is with your clients, but I see this paralysis show up very often, stopping initiatives, leaving them in the middle until things get better. And the thing is that things will never get better. So you basically have to keep going as if you are a musician. So you also need to train, I think, to do what I call taking massive action, which is, in the case of a musician, having the discipline to do whatever it takes to make the concert work. Whether that is, the discipline to talk right to your head, as you say, because it's a complex but also a machine that you can talk to, or whether it is learning a certain piece with different types of memories, so that if one of them fails, you have some built-in protection in there. If your photographic memory, to give an example, fails, you can let your muscle memory take over if someone sneezes. And then when adrenaline goes back to normal, then you can maybe continue to work with your photographic memory. But to translate that to teams, I think that whenever something happens, something so disruptive as today, you need to train yourself in reframing those challenges as opportunities. And this goes back to what I said earlier, so that you can always finish, you always pursue your goal. You might have to change the means, but if you reframe every challenge as an opportunity, if something doesn't work, then you take another road. And if that doesn't work, you take another one. And if it doesn't work, you take another one. So you take every possible action to bring that goal to a success. And I think that's definitely something that could help many teams today in order to thrive.
There's an excellent book in science, or body of science. It's called the Learned Helplessness versus Learned Optimism by Mark.
Yes.
Yes, and it's amazing, right? Because you need higher levels of optimism. And then people say, well, Nadia, how can you be, positive? And I say, it's not about being kumbaya, right? I left NATO last year, and I'm like, yay, I'm excited, I'm living my dream. And then 9 months when everything started to work, and I was doing my workshops for some big clients, and then boom, everything was canceled. And I was like, even as an emotional intelligence coach, I'm like, shit. My son at home, schools were closed. I was unhappily divorced, so it was co-parenting. It was my week, and I'm like, oh my god, all my clients canceled. I have my son full time at home. What am I to do? So when I tell people, it's acknowledge the situation, right? Feel the feelings. I felt sad. I felt frustrated. I felt anger. I felt unfairness for a few days. Right? I had several challenges in my life, so I trained myself to be much faster. But then I say, okay, how can I turn this into a value proposition to help people? Because what I do can really help people. So I really shifted my value proposition, and that's how I came to focus on cybercrime. And this is so important, because when you stay stuck in those negative emotions, your brain cannot think properly. Right? Because you're only accessing a very small portion of the brain, it's your prefrontal. But when you allow more general emotions, right, not so very negative emotions, and then you move up towards more pleasant emotions, you reduce the cortisol, stress hormone, and you release more oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine, the happy hormones of the brain, and then you access your full capacity. When people are in relaxation mode, right, or when they even are thinking about something, that's where they get their most genius ideas and inspiration. It's also when you go and interview, you really have to be relaxed before the interview, and this is where you're at your best. And this is why I teach people, is to understand that it's normal to feel those emotions. You need to feel them, but emotions are energy in motion. You have to allow them to flow through you, feel the feelings, flip the script, and then say, okay, what can I do? And even if it's one thing a day, right? And it's challenging to speak positive to yourself, to practice the story of the future, because we are primed to think negatively. This is what our basic, nature is, and it takes work, right? And then people say, but it's too hard. Like, well, it's a price to pay to increase your levels of well-being and improve your life in general. And I think people are much more conscious now what it means for them. It means different things for them, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
And this is what I always, the other thing I will say is to understand that change happens to you, but disruption happens within you. And there are 3 phases, according to William Bridges, a famous organizational behavior psychologist. First is the grieving process. You have to let go of the version of who you were, right? I had to let go of the NATO executive, which took me a while, but I also had to let go of the trainer that did in-person workshops. I was very comfortable online, so that was not the issue, but I had to rethink my future. And I had to let go grief about it. It's not, and this is actually why people struggle, because they were all assuming we're going to go back to normal. When are we going to back to normal? The next normal, or the, and this is the thing. The normal is continuous change. So how
Exactly.
Are you
Yeah.
how are you evolving? And they'll understand that the neutral zone, so the second phase, feels very uncomfortable. You feel fear, anger, stress, anxiety, and this is normal. So you have to allow your body to adapt as well, and to to allow yourself to feel. This is the time I said when I felt sorry for myself for 2 days. It's important. A lot of chocolate and ice cream and crying and screaming, kid, I want to go out. You cannot go out. There's a coronavirus. He's like, it's not going to kill me, the coronavirus. I said it. He was it was really crazy when I think back about it. But then what takes you out of that rut is your levels of optimism, leveraging your character strength, so who you are at your core. I use character strengths a lot, and help people and visualize where you want to go, right? You always need to know where you want to go. How would it look like? How would it feel like? Now, even if you're not there yet, you can tap into the feelings. If you just, because this is the beauty of the mind. It does know the difference between reality and what's happening in your mind. If you're thinking about one of your best performance right now, you can, if you think of that right now, those positive emotions, you will feel them, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I would like to emphasize what you said about normalizing. This is so important. I am thinking of a concert that I gave at the Icebreaker. This place doesn't exist anymore in Amsterdam, but it used to be like the venue where the most innovative music was performed. And I was about to go on stage, and I told one of my colleagues, I am feeling, I don't remember what I said, excited or nervous or whatever. And he looked at me and he said, you know what? It's okay. It's better to feel something than to go on stage without feeling anything at all. So he said, just accept it. It's normal. Let it, travel through your body, and just, take it to the stage. So I did so. And as you said, just, after 5 minutes, my inner landscape changed completely, and I gave an awesome performance. But it all came from normalizing the fact that I was feeling what I was feeling going onto that stage. So this normalizing, I think it's very important. We are so mental today that we forget that we have a body as well that is sensing all kind of things, from danger to, especially today, to things that don't agree with us. So the body is our savior, and it tells us, what is going on around us before we can actually make sense of it with the mind.
Exactly. So much going on in our perception, how we perceive, before we even become conscious of it. This is unconscious bias.
Exactly.
And this is why, those, it sounds woo for a lot of people, but mindfulness, yoga, or functional movement is so important to really connect your body with your mind. A lot of people are in burnout, or even before the COVID hit. It's because there's this, as you said, we are learned to think our way through life. And it's important. Yeah. But we are humans with feelings and emotions, and our emotions are our GPS in life, I say, right? You're not just mind. And this is why people get so messed up as well, if they're just in their mind. So, and for everybody it will be different, right? But becoming comfortable and understanding that you are, a whole, and leverage that, understand that you have a gut feeling when something doesn't feel right. You may want to listen to it, right? Or you may understand that it's absolutely normal to feel scared before a big event. The person doesn't make you, and when you do make a mistake, some of the best creations came from people who made a lot of mistakes. If I would get $1 for every mistake, I would be a multi-billionaire.
I am thinking now of there was, unfortunately, he died a couple of years ago, but the biggest bass clarinet player that the Netherlands ever produced, his name was Harry Spanner. And he was not just an amazing player, but also an amazing teacher. And he he said, if you play a wrong note, because he did a lot of improvisation, he just said, enjoy it. Make it part of your music. Make it bigger. Make it even uglier. And that was so freeing. So as you say, indeed, from mistakes, great things can happen. And he was a great improviser who, yeah. Hey, I was just wondering, yeah, so EQ and the impact that it can have in the workplace. So imagine you have a magic wand and you can create this wonderful workplace, you know, in 3 years from now. What does it look like according to you?
I will be very general because obviously it will be different for different organizations, but I think for me, there will be some key elements. It will be a workplace where people can show up as their authentic self. So we no longer only count or leverage technology or systems or processes, but also people, right? The differences between people. Often we put people who have amazing talents, and when they're in the wrong function, right? Or they are not incentivized, or they are not using to their best capability, or they're not contributing, then it's the company suffers in the end because the quality of work is low. So how do I see 3 to 5 years from now a workplace where people show up as themselves, and they leverage their emotional intelligence. Some can be more expressive than others, but it's the differences that brings us together. So it's not so much about creating diversity, but creating inclusion of different backgrounds, inclusion of different genders, inclusion of different disciplines, of way of thinking. So it's, you know, to challenge people to think differently and not take it personal. A true leader for me tells his employee, not what can you do for me, but what can I do for you? How can I make your work better? How can I make it safer for you? How can I help you, you know, be the best version that you can, right? That's a true leader that we need now, because people are losing hope. The second is, how can we this, I think we spoke about this. Many people are facing unemployment. We have up to 5 different generations working now in the workforce, and there will be a high need for reskilling as well. Right? But there's a huge opportunity, in my view, to bring all these non-traditional disciplines or these different disciplines in different areas to come with creative, bold, innovative solutions that are fit for the digital age, or the age of, I don't want to say age of pandemics. I hope this one will not be for decades to come, but the challenges are continuing, right?
Yes.
And it's just, and I think the climate change is looming large as well. So we need out-of-the-box thinkers. We need builders. We need academics, but we need people who talk, people who research, and people who do things. We need risk takers, where, especially in public institutions, there's still a huge risk averse, right?
Yes.
Hide behind the government, the culture, etc. What I see as a vision is risk-tolerant culture that is people-centric. To invest in the people, because when you invest in the people, ultimately, I think there are many researchers, when customers, they still trust the most when there's human interaction.
Yes.
And current world we're living in, there's, trust has been broken a lot. So again, exercising trust building and how we work together, so we minimize the friction and minimize any assumptions that you lead to mistrust, and we learn how to work together, right?
Yeah.
So I would call people-centric, risk-tolerant, and authentic. Allow people to be themselves and feel they are contributing to something. Give them the sense of purpose.
Yeah, great. I want to show you something, by the way. I don't know if I ever showed it to you before. I don't think so. But it's building up on this vision, for the workplace in 3 to 5 years from now. Because, as you said, this pandemic will be over, but apparently we will have another one in 10 years. So
I'm not psychic, but just saying is like.
So I thought my vision for organizations in 3 years is for organizations to have a very strong immune system. And I'm going to show you something. I'm going to share my screen again.
It's a very good analogy in these times.
Yeah, so look at this. So look, I came up with a game, and which is about governance. For those who don't read Dutch, what it says here is governance is also about enablement. And what I mean with that, and the relationship with the immune system, is that the policies that we have put in place to protect our organizations are the same policies that prevent people, even leaders, with high positions, to have access to the information that they need in order to respond in real time to what is happening. So based on my work I will show you another thing. Let me see if I can I'll show you something else that comes from the arts.
That looks very, very cool.
Yeah, so look at this. I have something else. So look, everything that you see on top here of this slide are pieces of music. It's just a one-pager. And this is what we call graphic scores. And, on the left, you have Beethoven. Beethoven was a CEO, a micromanager who told everyone what to do and when and how. And on the right-hand side, you have free improvisation. It's the exact opposite when the composer says, okay, do as you see fit. I don't even need to know what you are doing. But in between, there are different ways of distributing control between composer and players. And the more you move to the right, the less the composer does, and the more the players decide. So this inspired me to come up with the game that I just showed you, which is here. Let me put it up again. Yeah. So look, so governance focuses mostly on protection and and control, but it should be also about enablement, because people should have access to information in order to respond to what is happening. So based on what I just showed you, the graphic scores, I came up with a poker game that when you look at the immune system in our body, there is not one T cell that is controlling the immune system, and that can go on and off, because if that were the case, we would die in the presence of a virus right away. What we have inside the body is a system, different parts that are talking to each other, that are interdependent, and that are keeping us alive. They are fighting the virus. So this game, is about exactly the same thing. It's about distributing control. There is more control at the beginning and no control at the end, and in between there are different levels. And even though it might sound counterintuitive, by distributing control and enabling people to do more and more instead of being a micromanager, then you actually have more control over how you respond to what is happening.
This is brilliant, and just to what comes to my mind, I think this is actually not related to the work I do, but when I was in NATO, there were a lot of discussions on actually now with all this hybrid threats, how do you orchestrate the command, the command and control decision maker, which no longer works, because imagine you have a ethical cyber hacker who's 25 years old, and his main objective is to have resilient networks, and then you have a general, 5-star general. No one's, I don't want to, the stereotype, but there's a certain way of hierarchy, right? But the cyber, where do you give the power of decision on what area? And I think, and this is actually brilliant in exercising it, and including it also in military exercises, where they have these, the need for decentralized decision making more and more to be able to deal with the threats. When do you give a younger officer who does not have the authority but has the necessary knowledge and skill set to make a decision, right?
Yes.
Deal with that. So I see that as, and not only for the military, I think in any organization, it's important. But this is what came to mind. This is something that they are also working on and exercising. But very important, decentralized decision making in the military. To what point? It's all change.
Yeah. So yeah, you cannot control what happens, but you can control how you respond to it. And if you organize your governance as more than the control and protection, and see it also as enablement, I am going to give actually people the opportunity to contribute and use their. We are dealing with knowledge workers today, so enabling them to do more and more it gives you a strong immune system. And by the way, in this game at least, the leader remains the leader. I mean, this is a facilitated dialogue between leader and team. Yeah, because the leader decides ultimately, where the boundaries are. But of course, if you are a team member, you need to agree to it because you want to be held accountable for what you do. But in the end, it is the leader who decides, how much space he or she gives to different team members.
Yeah.
You were saying also something. By the way, this goes to the very beginning when you were talking about psychological safety. This is something I like about my game, and that is when the boundaries are clear and you know exactly how much space you have to take initiative, then you have psychological safety. You cannot be burnt. You can never do something that is going to put you in trouble because you are exactly sure of how far you can go.
Everyone plays by the rules.
Yeah. So in 3 years from now, maybe 5, my vision for the workplace is that everyone has been trained in this game. And that there is psychological safety as a result of it, and that there is also what I called lightheartedness. And what I mean with that is a little bit of humor. I want leaders and teams, of course, to take the work very seriously, but themselves not so much. Because when there is humor, the walls in between people become smaller, and you can learn from mistakes, and you can come to the work, as you said, with your whole self. There are no fear of bringing the whole of who you are.
Exactly. I mean, first of all, there's so much research that shows that humor is critical for higher performance. And
yes.
And all of my workshops, when I use role play, I really make them very, very humor. I use a lot of humor, and it works perfectly because the ice is broken from the beginning. People feel very comfortable. I did one for a large institution for a team, and there were few people who had never even met in person because they joined when COVID hit. And they connected immediately, right? And it was so nice to see them saying, by the way, don't take this personally. I'm just playing a role. I'm not normally like this. And they're like, oh, no, don't worry. It's actually very easy. So it creates this bonding between people. And I think the lesson learned from the military, which I love, right? It's people, like the people are the mission, right? One mission, one team, or one team, one mission, right? The military will never leave their teammate or even civilians, also when I was deployed, out in danger, right? There doesn't matter where they come from. There was one vision, and this is what I meant with leveraging strengths. Everyone came from different backgrounds, from different countries, from different hierarchy. When I think the best time, challenging time, the best time when I was deployed, because I've never felt so much belonging as part of a team. Everyone was in the same boat. We came from all over the world, from different scientists, and we had all different mental models, but we knew the vision and we were there for each other. And the collaboration was amazing. So if we can, in times of conflict, right, you can also do it in times of maybe not war or conflict in certain areas. But I think if we start valuing the people aspect, which is for me very important, payoffs will be enormous. And especially now that we're not only facing a global recession, but also global depression.
No, definitely. I must say that, we started talking about similarities between the military and the modern arts, and I see there even more. Because this multidisciplinarity that is also it's like a non-issue in the arts, in the modern arts. Like everyone is different. everyone is very curious always to attract differentness and to look at problems from different angles. And this is unfortunately not the case in organizations. There is so much specializations and so many experts, and I think that teams would benefit enormously from recruiting, whether internally or externally, those who are qualified to do the job, you know. And especially in times like right now, I mean, we have been hit by Corona. We don't have Corona experts. The world is burning, and we need people to, you know, make it better. So if we continue to look for experts, we are never going to find the right people to solve the problems, and there will be a lot of unemployment that is completely unfunded, because yeah, there is more to life than expertise. There is also just being qualified for something.
It's such an important point, and I always myself, I find it personally a bit frustrating. It's my personal view. I think, you know, we overrate expert. A lot of people like to call themselves expert, but I think even a Cambridge PhD article, the importance of feeling stupid. You want to have people that are knowledgeable, but that are never afraid to admit when they're wrong, and you can learn until the last breath flows out of you. You need to learn your craft. You need to master your skills. I wouldn't want to go to a surgeon who's not an expert or who's not really trained in, you know, heart surgery, for example, if he needs to cut off my heart, right? But that's different. But I think we all like ourselves, and the risk when we do that is onefold. Exactly what you say. We eliminate so many other potential ideas and people that can help bring about a solution. We also dissuade other people. Oh, I'm not an expert. Well, I mean, what's the definition of expert? Right?
Yeah.
Spend years researching one topic to prove someone else wrong, and then the other body spends another years of researching to prove that thing wrong. So it's an evolution of perceptions and truths and facts blending. I think we need to really allow our, I say, ego at the doorstep, which is not easy, and really what is the problem. And we need differences. We need experts. We need knowledge. Right?
Yeah.
Insights. We need experiences. We need practitioners. I've always been a practitioner, right? And yes, I have academic qualification, etc. But I believe in combining it and exercising and doing. And I love hearing from someone who you would not think that they would be, you know, the right fit. And they come up. There was even a TED talk that went viral of a founder of a startup, of a technology company. He and his team of programmers were trying to solve a solution, and they could not solve it. He went to the bar because he was fed up, and the barman, he got talking, etc. He was intrigued by the barman. He hired the barman, and the barman solved the solution.
Yeah, because as you said before, I mean, what we need is also mental models. You know, I work with systemic tools, and in system theory, there is something called the darkness principle. Maybe you're familiar with it, but it's exactly about this. It says that, you know, each person in a team or wherever, each person has only one mental model of the challenge at hand. So if you are dealing with complex problems today, you know, it is convenient to invite as many mental models to the table as possible, because each one of them will give you a piece of the problem that you had not seen before. And when you have all of those mental models on the table, then you can choose the bits and pieces that can help you respond in the most effective manner. Exactly. So, but I think that for this to work, you know, it all starts with awareness, because this obsession with expertise is really a construct, you know, and it comes from the industrial era, and we are not there anymore. So it's an awareness that, you know, this penny needs to drop. It's like we are not there anymore. Yeah. So we cannot function in that way. And if you look at the past, I mean, in the Renaissance, it was normal to cross domains and to do different jobs. And And then, you know, Henry Ford came, and from that moment on, we all needed to be experts. Like, we can do so much more, you know, than just one thing. But that awareness, that's a tough one. That's like a penny that doesn't really quite, want to fall yet.
Some people it drops fast, other people not so fast. But this is why I think exercising precisely people skills and collaboration to help make to always practice self-awareness continuously.
Yeah.
So talking about self-awareness, I am a single mom with my son who is still sleeping. And I'm so grateful for school during these times. I'm so grateful for the teachers. I learned to appreciate the teachers during the lockdown. I've never had any complaint anymore. I just, whatever you do, yes. Love it. I really enjoyed this so much. I think you really know. I mean, I find it amazing what you do, and I think there's so much demand for it, and I really see the analogy and the performing art and the systemic, and how I think we don't realize how much goes into making everyone perform their part as part of a whole, and no matter, even when shit hits the fan, and I think there are many cases where shit hit the fan and everyone still plays and they're in their flow, right? And that's where the best work comes. So I think the work that you do in helping teams leverage that skill set is very unique and so needed. So, and I really feel very privileged, and you really inspired me and stimulated me
well, thank you. Same here. I actually have the feeling that we have covered like 1,000 topics in 1 hour. So I think this, if we put our mind to it, we could probably have 1,000 conversations with different topics. There is so much that could be unfolded here. That So. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the viewers?
I think
to thrive today, to keep the cool and to just respond to what is happening.
This may sound counterintuitive, but it's okay to lose your cool in order to keep your cool, right? Remember that you are human beings with feelings, and to non-judgmental. So understand that it's normal, especially in these times, to be human. So it's okay to lose your cool before and then keep your cool, because you need to out. And to not forget that behind every system, behind every organization, behind every process or desk, there are people, real people. They may look different than you, they may think different than you, they may behave different than you, but just because it feels unfamiliar or uncomfortable, don't practice non-judgment based on your mental model, on your beliefs, right? Self-awareness, challenging what activated this belief, what do I believe, how can I see things differently, right? And the more we seek to understand before being understood, so we exercise empathy, I think the more organization will bounce back and thrive throughout this crisis.
Yeah, and I would repeat what we said before about functional trust. Just don't make it personal. If you have to perform, it's not about you, the person. It's not about your colleagues, the persons. What needs to be trusted, what needs to be accomplished, and focus on that. Bring it always back to the facts. And
I always say that the last saying I say you can be the juiciest peach in the world. There will still be people who don't like peaches.
Yeah, that is definitely true.
Together, we can work together.
I think that's a quote by what's her name? Tisa. What's her name?
I'm always using it. I don't know. I've forgotten.
Yeah. What's her name? She's a burlesque artist. Anyway, I'll look for it. But yeah, that's a great quote. Definitely, there will always someone who doesn't like peaches.
Anyway, thank you so much. It's too quiet here, so I don't know
what happened. You need to go check.
Keep cool now because it's too quiet.
All right. So I'm gonna stop the live, and then we can talk for like a couple of minutes, and then you can go check on your son. Hopefully he's okay. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
All right. Okay, so it has been wonderful talking to you. And as I said, I think we could have 1,000 conversations on 1,000 different topics. So who knows? But yeah, have a great start of the week tomorrow. Today's Sunday.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.